Hey there, hope you're having a great day. We are looking at 4.3 today on dividing polynomials. Two objectives we're going to look at, and that is being able to divide polynomials, expressions with monomials, and divide polynomials using synthetic division. Now you're going to notice if you go into the book, you're going to see some problems on long division, but these problems are a pre-calculus standard now, and so we will not be looking at those today. If you want to talk about them one-on-one, or if you want to look during enrichment maybe later this week, we can do that. But just for this standard, for what we need to do in Algebra 2, we're going to look only at synthetic division and simplifying monomials, okay? And so the standard that this is going to fall under is using properties like exponents to transform expressions for exponential functions, because this will lead us into what we're going to do in Unit 5 with Unit 5 and Unit 6 with exponential functions. Okay, so starting off here, we're going to divide a polynomial by a monomial, and so you're going to see. Let me fix this text real quick. Boom, magic. So now we've got that cube there. So 5a squared minus 15ab cubed plus 10a cubed b to the fourth, all being divided by 5ab. And so as we look at this example, remember that we could think about this example as 5a squared b over 5ab minus 15ab cubed over 5ab plus 10a cubed b to the fourth over 5ab. Because remember, if I have multiple things being added or subtracted in the numerator over one denominator, I can separate it into their individual pieces. And so this will actually make it easier to simplify this problem. Because if you look at the first fraction, 5 divided by 5 is 1. Here I have a squared and a, so one of the a's will cancel, and b over b will completely cancel. So from this first fraction, all I'm left with is a. We go to the second one, we've got 15 divided by 5. Well, that's 3. A divided by a will completely cancel. And here I've got 3 b's, b to the third, and here I've got 1b, so 1b from here is going to bring that down to 2 because 3 minus 1 is 2. And so I'm going to end up, the minus sign is going to stay in front of it, 3b squared. And so now we go to the third term. All right, we got 10 over 5. Plus sign's going to come down. 10 divided by 5 is 2. A to the third and a. So again, just like with our b's over here, we're going to lose one of the powers here, so we're going to go down to 2. So I got a squared. And then b to the fourth over b, so same thing's going to happen. We're going to take a b and subtract it from here, so we end up at the third power, so b to the third. And so we end up with a minus 3b squared plus 2a squared b cubed. There's nothing else we could do to simplify this because there's no common terms to factor out or anything like that, but we're just dividing here anyways. Okay, so think about that again. Remember, we're dividing out each individual piece. Okay, and so try example B here. 3x squared y plus 6y to the fifth y squared minus 9x to the seventh y cubed all over 3x squared y. So pause the video, try this one here. All right, so if you pause the video, let's look through what's going to happen with this problem. And so 3x squared y over 3x squared y plus 6x to the fifth y squared over 3x squared y minus 9x to the seventh y to the third over 3x squared y. And so we're going to do the same thing we did before, canceling out and simplifying what like terms we do have. 3 divided by 3 cancels. X squared divided by x squared will cancel. Y divided by y cancels. So everything cancels here. But understand that something divided by itself is not 0. Something divided by itself is 1. So I have to have this 1 here. The middle term plus sign coming down. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Remember, we're going to subtract these powers, right? So 5 minus 2 leaves me with 3. And here I've got 2, and then of course this has a 1 on it, so I'm going to be left with just a y. Over here, 9. Oops, let's not put another little dot there. Back up. So the minus sign comes down. 9 divided by 3 is 3. x to the 7th and x squared. So again, we're going to take those powers and subtract, and so it gives me x to the 5th. Remember, there's like a 1 here, because there is. And y cubed over y to the 1st will leave me with y squared. And so this is our answer here. If you got that, great job. Remember, we're just dealing with the power rules that we've already dealt with before, okay? Just so those of you who are going to be like, oh, you're doing example 3 next. No, example 2 is a pre-calculus standard. We're skipping it. That's the long division in the book. So again, skipping example 2. If you want to look at it, be my guest. If you got questions about it and you're like, hey, how do you do this? We'll talk about it. But I'm not going to put it in today's lesson. But what we are talking about division-wise is what we call synthetic division. And again, I could show you long division problems, show you how the thing get it out, but I want you to focus on what is happening here. Okay, so these are steps. Steps 1 is going to be to write the coefficients of the dividend. Remember that we have the dividend is the first number, right? So if I do like 6 divided by 3 equals 2, right? The dividend is the 6. The divisor, right, is the 3. And of course, the quotient, the answer, is the 2 in 6 divided by 3 equals 2. And so write the coefficients of the dividend so the degrees of the terms are in descending order. Write the constant r in the box. And that is coming from the second piece, which is the x minus r piece. And then we're going to drop down the first coefficient. So I'll show you what that step looks like with example 5. Examples 2, 3, and 4 were all from long division. So example 5, we're going to take and we're going to draw this little box here. Now, some books will show it this way. Others will do a little box here and then do a line across like this. Both methods are fine, just personal preference. So we're going to take all the coefficients of the dividend and put them on top. So the coefficient of x cubed is 1, then negative 4, then 6, and negative 4. And then we're going to take this piece, the divisor, and the best thing to do is just think about setting it equal to 0 and solving for x. So x minus 2 is equal to 0, so x is equal to what? 2. Now, what that means is that I'm looking for where is x equal to 2, right? And so I'm going to put the 2 out here. And that's what this step 1 is telling you. This r is this number here, okay? And so step 1 also said to drop down the first coefficient. And so we're going to take, in this case, the 1, drop it straight through. Again, this 1 will drop straight through to the bottom. And then the step 2 says to multiply the first coefficient by the r. So we're going to take this 1 that we now have and write the product under the second coefficient. And so 2 times 1 is 2, so I write the 2 here. And then step 3 says to add the product and the second coefficient. So we're going to take the negative 4 and add it to the 2, and we're going to get negative 2. And then step 4 says repeat the steps until you reach the last column. So let's repeat the steps before we get to the rest of this instruction. So 2 times the negative 2 is negative 4. 6 plus negative 4 is positive 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Okay, so now I've gotten all the way down to the end. The numbers below the box are the coefficients of the quotient. So we'll talk about that. So when we talk about the quotient, remember we're doing this divided by this. Well, think about this. This is x cubed divided by an x, right? Think about what we just did a moment ago. If I take x cubed and I divide it by x, what's my power? Well, x squared, right? Because what's happening is this is my x cubed term, right? My x squared, my x, and my constant. Well, I'm dividing by x minus 2, so my powers are going to go down. This is my x squared term. This is my x. This is my constant. And then what's at the very end, and this is what it tells us in the direction, the final number is the what? The remainder. And so this is my r. And so in this problem, I'm going to get the x squared minus 2x plus 2. Now, had there been something other than 0 here, we would have a remainder. And I'll show you how to do that in the next problem, because the next one will have a remainder. But this one, this is the final answer. And so when we take this and divide it by this, we get this, right? And so reversing that process, we could think about x squared minus 2x plus 2 times it by x minus 2 would multiply all back out and give me my original dividend, x cubed minus 4x squared plus 6x minus a 4. Again, if you want to check that and multiply it all out, you will see that it does check out. So let's look at example B here. X squared plus 8x plus 7 divided by x plus 2. And so going through our steps, we're going to get, draw your box, our coefficients down. We're going to get 1, 8, and 7, right? And then out here, remember, we're going to do x plus 2 equals 0. So x is equal to negative 2. And so negative 2 is what comes out here. And so dropping the 1 straight through, we get 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. 8 and negative 2 give us a positive 6. Negative 2 times positive 6 is negative 12. 7 plus negative 12 is negative 5. And so what we get is this. So let's label out our powers. We had our x squared here, our x, and our constant. Well, remember down here the powers are going to drop by 1. So x, our constant, and our remainder. And so what we get is this. We're going to get x, because there's one x, right? Plus the 6, because this is our constant, there's no x involved. Minus, because of the negative sign there, 5 over, what did we divide by? X plus 2. So that's what's going to go here. Now, you're wondering, why do we write the remainder out like that? Well, let's think about it for a second. If I do a simple division problem, let's go back to regular division. If I do 4 and the 9, right? So 9 divided by 4, right? How many times does 4 go into 9? Well, it goes twice, right? And 4 times 2 is 8, and so we'd subtract that and get the 1. And now for dealing with the decimal, we put the decimal and drop it down, right? But go back to like 4th grade for a second. You would just stop here and write R1, right? Now, why do we write this R1 nonsense? Well, that's a whole different discussion for a whole nother day. But what this leads to is what you go from 4th grade to 5th grade. And that's where you convert this R1 into a fraction, and this becomes 2, with the 1 as the numerator, and what's your denominator? It's your divisor. And so we make this 2 and 1/4. Well, what am I really dividing by here? Remember, I'm not dividing by negative 2. That's just synthetic division doing what it does. What am I really dividing by is x plus 2. And so my divisor ends up as the denominator of the remainder. Same thing as we do with just simple division. Okay? Let's look at example 6. Divisors with coefficients other than 1. Well, I've already shown you that we're going to set this x, or in this case, y is our variable, set the divisor equal to 0 and solve for that variable. So why would it be any different if I just have like x plus 2 or x minus 5 to have 2y minus 1 and solve for it? So we're going to set our box, and so I'm going to get 4, negative 6, 4, and negative 1. I'm going to have the 2y minus 1 equals 0, so I'm going to add 1. And then I'm going to divide by 2, and I get y is equal to 1/2. Now, if you'd like to work with the decimal here, that's your preference. But again, understand that a lot of times we're going to get a fraction that does not come out to a nice decimal. So understand, if you get 2/3 here, don't make that 0.6 repeating, because you don't want to deal with it later. Leave it the fraction. I promise you, fractions are your friend, and decimals are the devil. So remember, the 4 is going to drop straight through first. So there's the 4. 1/2 times 4 is 2. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. 4 plus negative 2 is 2. Half of 2 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. And so we end up, remember, let's label out our variables here. So y cubed, y squared, y, and our constant, meaning we get y squared, y, our constant, and remainder, right? And so we're going to get left with 4y squared minus 4y plus 2. There's no remainder, so I don't need to do the back piece. And so we'll get left with that. Okay, so again, understand that no matter what we're doing, this term has to be a linear term that we're dividing by. If it's not linear, then there's some other methods we could talk about. Again, long division would be one. But there's also ways to deal with synthetic twice if it factors. But again, that's a little bit more complicated case, and we could talk about it tomorrow. Okay? All right, here's our last one. It says use synthetic division to find this, okay? Now, I want you to pay attention to the notation. This is multiplication here, right? But look at the power. Power is -1, which means, remember, where's that -1 going to take that entire base? It's going to make it into the denominator of a fraction, right? And so this rewrites as 8y squared minus 12y squared. Sorry, these powers are wrong. This should be a third. So there it's fixed. So 8y cubed minus 12y squared plus the 4y plus the 10 divided by the 2y plus 1. Again, we could write it as one big fraction, but we know we're doing division. And so we're going to set up the synthetic. Now, one thing that I don't have an example of it in this video, but one thing I do want to talk about briefly is what if you're missing a term? What if I didn't have this like 4y term here? Well, in synthetic, we've got to have a placeholder for every power that we have going all the way down to the constant. And so if I didn't have a y term, guess what I have to put here? A big fat 0 and continue on down the path, okay? But I've got a 4 here and I've got a 10 here. And so again, doing the 2y plus 1 equals 0, we're going to get similar to what we got last time. So 2y is equal to -1. And so dividing by 2, we get y is equal to -1/2. -1/2. And so the 8 drops down. What is half of 8? Well, it's 4, and a negative times a positive is a negative. -12 and -4 will give us -16. Half of that is 8, and negative times negative gives us a positive, so I'm going to end up with a positive 8 here. 8 and 4 will give us 12. Half of 12 is 6. Negative times positive is a negative. And so this leaves us with 4. And so what we end up with, that's my y, that's my constant. So this is my y squared, y constant, and remainder. So we're going to end up with 8y squared minus 16y plus 12 plus the 4 over, remember our divisor, 2y plus 1. So that's synthetic division. That's all it is. You know, you could try to make this more complicated than it is, but it's really not. So that's it. The word of the day is synthetic. Again, the word of the day is synthetic. And so I hope y'all have a great night, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow in class. Y'all have a good one.